Attorney, last year a TasCAT selection panel recommended 17 candidates for appointment. You rejected 4 of those candidates and appointed another 6. You said you did that on the basis that these people had been advocates on political issues, and you claimed that you needed to preserve the tribunal's independence from politics and prevent the perception that members were not independent or impartial. What's happened is that you, as Minister, overruled an independent assessment panel, rejected recommended candidates who have been critical of your government's policies, and appointed 6 candidates who weren't recommended. If the public believe that you can veto anyone who's ever criticised your government's policies, how do you think that's going to improve the perception of the tribunal's independence from politics?
So, Chair, I absolutely reject that allegation that I have made decisions based on someone's criticism of the government. I get criticised every day, and that's fair game. But what I consider in the appointment of whether it's a judicial office or, in this case, like a quasi-judicial officer, what's important to me is preserving that institution's independence. Now, these appointments are my appointments to recommend to the Governor, for the Governor to make, and they then become the Governor's appointments. But let's go back to the process of judicial appointments as well. They will always be the subject of the Attorney-General and Minister for Justice of the day. In this instance, and let me be very clear, we have a panel that's put together to undertake a process to then make recommendations to me on suitability or otherwise. Now, I reject the allegation also that I replaced 4 with 6. I looked at everyone that was interviewed, and I also have knowledge of past people that have been considered suitable for appointment, and I certainly didn't appoint anyone that was unsuitable for appointment. But I will stress that as part of that process, I followed that process to the T, to the point of meeting with the President of TasCAT and discussing these things, discussing Section 43 of the Act, discussing the Code of Conduct for members that become ordinary members of the tribunal, and the importance that there not be a perception of the lack of independence or impartiality. And my advice to the Governor was very clear and was based on appointments that were suitable for appointment. I know that members have constructed who has been on and off the list, and quite frankly, I think that practice has been quite appalling, because there have been certain assumptions made and that certain things shouldn't have been discussed as well. So I'm also cognisant of the fact that 2 people spoke out publicly, and they're entitled to do that, but I wouldn't have identified any person that has applied for positions of this nature, because they should remain as part of the process, and it's certainly not for me to make those comments publicly.
Well, isn't the problem, Attorney, that all this stuff is not made public, and the fact that we have somebody like Robin Banks, former Anti-Discrimination Commissioner, like Greg Barnes SC, highly credentialed and esteemed people in the legal profession or in the Tasmanian community, put aside by you when they were recommended by the panel, it calls into question the independence of that panel and the whole process. And it is a de facto criticism of the panel itself and their capacity to make a decision. I mean, it's clearly the case that you've intervened, you've made decisions about two people who just happen to be incredibly outspoken against this government's policies.
Chair, again, it shows the members' lack of understanding of a process. It is a decision for the Minister for Justice to make. It's not an intervention. It is a decision to make out of suitable or not suitable candidates. And I have said to you, I have not made any appointment of unsuitable people, only suitable people. And the amount of people that have been appointed as ordinary members of TasCAT, I discuss with the President how many he requires, and we discuss the suitability or otherwise of what the panel has recommended, but it's not the panel's decision to make. It's my decision to make recommendations then to the Governor based on information that's been adduced at interview and assessment of the materials by the panel, which is not a selection panel. I consider it to be an advisory panel.
Correct. And what you've done is you've slapped down some of the foremost people in this community for speaking out publicly about issues. What you've done, whether you agree or not, is you send a message for people to keep quiet.
I've considered the code of conduct.
Keep quiet about politics in this state, or you will not be able to reach
selection criterion
positions
we're going to
like
run out of
this.
time. I'm going to read selection criterion 6 for the committee. Preparedness to adhere to the TasCAT member code of conduct and to maintain the tribunal's independence and reputation, as well as personal independence and integrity, and to promote the highest standard of behaviour. Now, in other parts of the process, I'm bound to look at not only someone's suitability, but we need to avoid the perception of there being a lack of independence and impartiality. Now, if someone holds a position where they are a spokesperson for something that is an organisation that comments on any sort of thing publicly, how can you be an independent judicial officer, if you like, of a tribunal?
You can be. And that's your panel
when you
determined that they
still
could
have that
adhere to
role.
the code.
What's the point of having an advisory panel if you don't take any notice on these critical issue of independence of the judiciary?
I do take notice, and I did take
You disregarded
notice.
6 of them.
Thank you, Attorney, and thank you, members. Time is now 11 o'clock and the session has now concluded.